6 years ago. I was an obscure nobody in the entertainment industry. Not even able to compete for extra roles. In order to marry my girlfriend Willow, I worked myself to the bone, taking on multiple part-time jobs to make money. However, what I never expected was, in order to marry the wealthy second-generation heir Makoto, she, while pregnant, actually chose to run away with the ball. 6 years later, I have already won 3 Best Actor awards, and she was abandoned after her engagement was broken off. Raising the child alone, when we met again, she clutched my leg and cried, begging me to give her a proper status. She said, "I even gave birth to your child. Even if you don't care about our past, you should at least take pity on me for flying half an hour just to come find you, right?" Chapter 1. During a break on set, between filming scenes, a little girl who looked strikingly like Willow came up to me. Her lips were pursed, her expression a mix of grievance and stubborn pride. She said, "My mom is Willow. You're my dad." I looked at her and gave a calm nod. The next second, she pulled out a thick stack of cash from her backpack. Holding it up with pleading eyes, she said, "I want to hire you for one day, to attend my parent-teacher meeting." Okay. I stared at the child holding the money and froze for a moment. Then I frowned slightly and pushed the cash back. "I don't need it." Her eyes instantly turned red. She lowered her head, her voice growing softer and softer. "Grandpa said you're busy making money, so I saved up for a really long time before coming to find you. The kids in kindergarten all say I'm a wild kid with no dad. Every time I tell them I do have a dad, my dad is a big star, they always say I'm a liar. Even if you don't want me anymore, I'm not lying, but they just won't believe me." She stood there quietly, head lowered, her small body trembling as she wiped her tears with her sleeve. I crouched down and gently wiped the tears from her face. In a calm voice, I said, "I meant I don't need your money, but I can go." She suddenly lifted her head, her eyes shining brightly, disbelief mixed with uncontrollable joy. She threw herself straight into my arms. Her round little head trembled slightly, and she burst into tears again, as if she had suffered an overwhelming grievance. I patted her back, soothing her breathing. After she had cried enough, she looked into my eyes. Her face flushed red. Her gaze darted shyly as she said carefully, "I didn't cry today. I just couldn't hold it in just now." Looks like she's quite a little crybaby. Seeing her like this, I smiled and gently pinched her cheek. "It's okay if you want to cry. Just cry." She pressed her lips together and smiled, then grabbed my hand and enthusiastically introduced herself. "My name is Daisy. My nickname is Candy. I'm 5 years old. You can call me Candy." I smiled and nodded. "I know." She blinked, her big eyes sparkling. "You know my name?" I nodded again, confirming, "I know." Back when Willow and I were deeply in love, we had already picked out our daughter's name. Daisy was chosen by her, and Candy was chosen by me. How could I not know? Chapter 2. As I spoke, I led her onto the RV. The assistants on board, David and Luis, saw me come back with a child and immediately started teasing. "George, where did you kidnap this little girl from?" I patted Candy's little head and said calmly, "My daughter." The moment the words fell, the smiles on their faces froze instantly, and they panicked. David blurted out, What? No one got pictures, right? If this gets photographed, we're done for." Candy noticed that I didn't say anything. She carefully tugged at the corner of my clothes and asked softly, "Did I cause you trouble?" As soon as she said that, the anxiety on their faces shifted into a trace of guilt. I smiled, gently rubbing Candy's fluffy little head. "Candy is not trouble." David and Luis quickly waved their hands. Right. We were just talking nonsense." Candy looked at me, then at the 2 assistants, and slowly put down her small backpack. She squatted on the ground and took everything out of her bag: pajamas, a yellow cartoon umbrella, a water bottle, even her toothbrush, and that stack of cash, all neatly laid out on the floor. So she had really prepared everything before coming to find me. After laying everything out, she buried her head back into the backpack. She pulled out 2 cheese sticks and handed them to David and Luis. Looking at them obediently, she said, "Uncles, these are for you." Seeing her like this, the 2 grown men instantly softened their voices. "We love cheese sticks the most." Candy smiled shyly at that and took out several more from her bag. "Then Candy will give all of mine to you." After work wrapped up, I brought Candy back to the hotel. Only after asking carefully did I find out this little girl had left early in the morning with her backpack and taken a taxi all the way from Shanghai to the northern ancient town filming location. The driver had originally planned to call the police, but Candy offered so much money that he accepted the ride. She had actually arrived in the morning, but seeing that I was busy the whole time, she stayed with the fans and waited for me to finish work. That wait lasted until night. When everyone had dispersed, she quietly waited outside my RV. She was eating big mouthfuls of food now. She must have been starving. Looking at her like this, my feelings were complicated. I wanted to say something, but the words just wouldn't come out. I truly couldn't imagine how a child had the courage to take a taxi alone from Shanghai to the filming location. A journey of 3 to 4 hours. I didn't dare to think about how anxious and uneasy she must have felt. My voice was inevitably a little hoarse as I asked, "What if you got lost?" Candy, her mouth stuffed with rice, raised her hand and pointed at the smartwatch on her wrist, speaking unclearly. She tilted her head up at me and smiled. I wouldn't get lost. When I got in the car, I used my watch to take a picture of the license plate and sent it to Tom, and I kept calling Tom the whole time with my watch. Not only that, she even brought a power bank in case the watch ran out of battery. The more casually she talked about it, the more guilty I felt. She had planned everything so carefully. She must have been preparing this trip to find me for a very, very long time. She proudly lifted her chin and began chattering about her good friend again. Tom is my deskmate in kindergarten. We're best friends. When I grow up, I'm going to marry him. Hearing this, I pressed my forehead and gave a bitter smile. Next time, if you want to come find me, you can call me. I'll come pick you up. I paused for a moment, then added, if your mom agrees. She nodded quickly and let out a cheerful Chapter 3. After dinner, I took her to the bathroom. When she saw me preparing her toiletries, her face turned red and she stammered for a long time, unable to form a complete sentence. I immediately understood and waved my hand helplessly. I'm not going to bathe you. Here, body wash, shampoo, and toothpaste. Can you wash yourself? She nodded quickly. I can. I always bathe by myself at home. I patted her head and praised her. Good girl. After leaving the bathroom, I took out my phone and opened a chat that I hadn't contacted in a long time. I typed, "Candy is with me." Not long after the message was sent, the other side replied, "I know." She told me through her smartwatch. Seeing that indifferent tone, I frowned, but it seemed I didn't really have the right to blame her. I asked, "When are you coming to pick her up?" She replied, "I'll be out of town soon. Let Candy stay with you for a couple of days." I took a deep breath and was just about to type when the bathroom door opened. Candy ran toward me, holding her dirty clothes, her eyes full of expectation. "Daddy, I'm all clean and smell nice now." I deleted the message in the input box and put my phone away. Then I picked up the hairdryer and started drying her hair. The little girl in the mirror squinted her eyes, smiling softly, sitting on the stool while swinging her little legs, looking completely content. I smiled and ruffled her hair. After drying her hair, I brought her to bed and gave her a kiss. "All right, time to sleep. I'm going to wash up." The blanket covered half her face, leaving only a pair of bright, watery eyes as she nodded. When I came out after washing up, the little figure on the bed was hugging the blanket and happily rolling around. The moment she saw me, she quickly lay down properly and even patted the spot beside her. I couldn't help but laugh. As soon as I lay down, Candy immediately threw herself into my arms. I tucked the blanket around us and gently patted her back. But as I kept patting, the little one quietly began wiping away her tears. Her tiny hands clutched tightly onto my pajamas, as if afraid that I would disappear the very next second. Chapter 4. Children fall asleep quickly when sleepiness hits. Not long after crying, she drifted off. But tonight, I couldn't fall asleep no matter what. My thoughts couldn't help but drift back to many years ago. When I first met Willow, I had just started to gain some fame. At that time, my agent told me that the daughter of an investor had taken a liking to me and wanted to pay a high price to have me star in a romance film with her. But I was young and hot-blooded. When I saw the explicit lines in the script, along with over 20 minutes of kissing and bed scenes, I refused without hesitation. As a result, they quietly blacklisted me. I couldn't act in my own company's productions, and even for other companies' projects. Contracts that had already been signed were rendered void. But the $5 million penalty fee, given my family's financial situation, even if we sold everything, we couldn't afford to pay it. They used every means to cut off my future, even declaring that they would make sure I couldn't survive in the industry. Just when I was completely desperate, with no way out, I met Willow. At that time, I was in the restroom, throwing up from drinking too much, pathetic and miserable. She suddenly tapped me from behind and said, "George, it really is you. I've liked you for a long time. What projects have you been filming lately?" At first, I was just being polite to a fan, but she kept pressing me with questions. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe I was just annoyed. I ended up telling her everything I had been going through. I thought she would just listen and forget about it, but the next second, her eyes lit up, and she said, "George, I can help you." Then, with effortless confidence, she handed me a business card from the Lou Group, blinked, and said, "Be with me. At least I'm young and pretty. Being kept by me isn't exactly a loss for you." Later, the Lou Group paid my penalty fee, arranged for me to join a well-known entertainment company, and even found me the most professional agent. From that moment on, my career skyrocketed as if I had a cheat code. Endless job offers, roles with famous directors whenever I wanted, endorsement deals pouring in non-stop. Back then, George was truly at the height of glory, when our relationship was at its sweetest. I once asked Willow why she chose me. She smiled brightly and teased. Of course, it was love at first sight, purely because you're handsome. This young lady has always been domineering. If I want someone, I must have them. I couldn't help but laugh and gently flick the tip of her nose, but I also knew very clearly, Willow, a wealthy heiress, and I would never belong to the same world. So I worked desperately hard to climb upward, foolishly hoping that one day, I might be worthy of standing beside her. But just like all fantasies, it eventually shattered. Willow's mother came to see me. She made it very clear that the Liu family would never agree to let their daughter marry an unknown actor. Cutting losses in time was the wisest choice. She sent my critically ill father to the best sanatorium abroad and gave me a blank check, as well as a leading role in a film by a renowned director. This was a world I had struggled desperately to enter but never could. Compared to gambling on a future that had no future, the success laid out before me, no one would refuse it, but I didn't agree. Unfortunately, in this love story that I once believed was pure, the final blow that broke me was when Willow got engaged. There was no dramatic scene of a rich heiress eloping for love or cutting ties with her family. Willow didn't even cry. She was honest and calm. I asked her, "What about us? What are we supposed to do?" She still replied in that half-joking tone, "What difference does it make?" Of course, I understood what she meant, but my moral boundaries wouldn't allow me to accept that. So I broke up with her, taking everything the Liu family had given me and cutting off all ties with Willow Liu. Until one day, she sent me a message, telling me she was pregnant with my child. Chapter 5. When I woke up, I saw Candy staring at me with her big, bright eyes. The moment she noticed I was awake, she quickly shut her eyes and pretended to be asleep, but her eyelashes kept fluttering. I couldn't help but find it a little amusing and pinched her cheek. "I know you're awake." She shyly snuggled closer to me, happily wriggling like a little caterpillar. For once, I didn't have any filming scheduled today, so I spent the whole day playing around the filming location with Candy. Downstairs at the hotel, a red Ferrari had been parked there for who knows how long. Standing in front of it was someone I couldn't have been more familiar with, Willow. She was wearing a black high-waisted dress. When she saw us return, she slowly walked toward us. Compared to 5 years ago, she carried a more mature presence now, tilting her head slightly. Her cool gaze swept over Candy. Then she said calmly, "It's time to go home." Candy pouted, her face full of reluctance. "I want to stay with Daddy. If you're jealous of me, you can go home and find your own dad." Willow was so annoyed she laughed instead. She lifted her eyes to look at me. "See, it's not that I didn't come pick her up, she just refuses to go back with me." I patted Candy on the shoulder and coaxed gently. "Tomorrow is Monday. You have school." But Candy stubbornly shook her head, her eyes welling up with tears, looking as pitiful as could be. Seeing her like this, Willow let out a soft snort and was about to say something, but Candy pulled her aside to whisper something to her. Willow tilted her head, looking like she was only half listening, as if the words were going in one ear and out the other. Meanwhile, Candy had a serious little face, hands on her hips, her small mouth chattering nonstop, as if she were lecturing someone. Chapter 6. Candy said, "I already told you, I wanted to come find Daddy. You clearly promised that I could stay with him for a few days. I'm not going back with you. If you force me, I'll tell Grandma that you lied to a child. You should go back already. Don't disturb my alone time with Daddy." Willow bent down slightly and replied, "If you can come find him, why can't I?" Candy huffed, "My dad doesn't want you anymore. Why are you here to see him?" Willow choked on her words for a moment. She pressed her lips together, then rolled her eyes as if she didn't care at all. "You think acting pitiful will make him like you? He doesn't even want me. Why would he want you?" Candy got so upset that she started shouting about going back to complain, saying Willow was bullying her. And just like that, Candy dragged me back to the hotel room and shut Willow out the door. Willow was furious, but Candy refused to open the door no matter what. In the end, she could only send me a message, "Open the door." After locking the door, Candy ran around the room looking for a place to hide. In the end, she chose the bed. She took off her shoes and covered herself tightly with the blanket. Looking at the small hill bulging under the blanket, I couldn't help but laugh. Still, I went to open the door. When Willow saw me, she showed a rare bit of politeness. "Can I come in?" I nodded. "Sure." Back when Willow told me she was pregnant, I once thought she had changed her mind, but very soon, I realized how wrong I was. I watched as she held a grand engagement ceremony with Makoto Ito, watched them walk hand in hand at various public events. Even netizens called them a match made in heaven. As for me, thanks to the film Willow's mother had given me, I went on to win 3 Best Actor awards in a row, completely securing my place in the industry. After Willow came in, she glanced at the small lump on the bed and let out a soft laugh. She didn't expose Candy right away. Instead, she asked me, "How have you been lately?" I smiled. Not bad. You. She sat down naturally, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, her tone light. Not engaged. Not in a relationship, still on my own. I'm doing fine. I was a bit speechless. I didn't even ask that. So I asked, what about Mr. Ito? She looked up at me, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Him? Probably somewhere on a beach overseas, sunbathing with his little girlfriend. She added, there's never really been anything between us. I gave a soft then decisively changed the subject. Take Candy back. She has school tomorrow. The moment I said that, Candy suddenly threw off the blanket, jumped out of bed barefoot, and hugged my leg. Daddy, can you not send me away? I looked at her round eyes, shimmering with tears. My heart softened. But you have school tomorrow. She didn't say anything, just tightly clutched the leg of my pants. Seeing her like this, Willow finally spoke up. Missing a couple days of kindergarten isn't a big deal. Just let her stay with you for a few days. Candy looked up, her eyes red. Daddy, I'll be very obedient. I won't disturb your work. I gently patted her head, feeling a quiet warmth in my heart, watching the tender scene of father and daughter. Willow let out a soft laugh. After a couple of days, will you still recognize me as your mom? Candy turned her head, thought for a moment, and in the end, nodded. Chapter 7. Candy was a sweet-talking little girl. After just one day at the set with me, she had already become familiar with all the staff. Whenever I had breaks between scenes, she would sit obediently beside the director and watch me act. This time, we were filming a serious historical drama. The director had worked with me several times before, so he was especially tolerant of Candy. From time to time, he would tease her. So, what do you think? Isn't your director uncle pretty impressive? Candy lifted her little face and nodded vigorously. Director uncle, you're amazing. You should teach my dad how to film properly. Mom said he used to take photos of himself that looked like a ghost. The director burst out laughing at me. When the scene ended, I was done for the day. Over these past 2 days on set, my co-stars had all learned that I had a 5-year-old daughter. At first, they were shocked, but they adjusted quickly. And since Candy was so lovable, everyone enjoyed teasing her during breaks. When Willow came to pick Candy up, the female lead in the drama, Alicia, was holding her. Alicia teased Candy. I play your dad's wife in the show. Shouldn't you call me Mom, too? Candy wrapped her arms around Alicia's neck, thought for a moment, and said, Big sister, even though you're younger than my mom, prettier than my mom, and you buy me cheese sticks to eat, if I call you Mom, my mom will get jealous, and if she cries, no one will comfort her. That would be so pitiful. Hearing Candy's compliments, Alicia laughed so hard she couldn't stop. All right, even if you don't call me Mom, I'll still buy you cheese sticks. Just as she finished speaking, Candy heard Willow calling her. Candy, come here. Even though she hadn't seen her mom for just a couple of days, she still missed her. Hearing Willow's voice, she quickly climbed down from Alicia's arms and hugged Willow's leg. Willow looked down at Candy and rolled her eyes. Your mom is old. Huh? Not as pretty as others. Candy grinned, then lowered her head and muttered softly, but it's true. Willow grabbed her under the arms and lifted her up in one motion. She walked toward Alicia, raised her hand slightly, and said, Hello, I'm Willow, the mother of George's daughter. Alicia smiled lightly. Hello, I'm Alicia. When I came out from the director's tent, I saw the two women smiling as they complimented each other's outfits. I wasn't the naive kid I used to be anymore. I could clearly sense the tension beneath the surface. I stepped forward, sighed, and looked at Willow. What are you doing? The corner of her lips curved slightly. She glanced at Alicia again, a hint of provocation in her eyes. Just saying hello. I was speechless. Knowing that Willow was coming to pick Candy up today, I had already packed her things into the RV. Candy hugged her little backpack, pouting with obvious reluctance. Then she seemed to remember something, counted on her fingers, and her expression softened. Daddy, the day after tomorrow is Friday again. Can Candy come find you again? I smiled helplessly and pinched her cheek. Anytime, but don't come secretly by yourself again. You can message me, and Daddy will have someone pick you up. Hearing that, the gloom on Candy's face disappeared instantly, replaced by a bright smile. She tugged at Willow's clothes happily. Let's go, Mommy. As soon as they got into the car, Willow started asking Candy, that Aunt Alicia. Before she could finish, Candy cut in. Aunt Alicia likes Daddy. Willow's grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. She gave a muffled, oh. She had thought, who would try to trick someone else's child into calling them Mom right after meeting? Sure enough, she had ulterior motives. After a moment, she asked again, then what about your dad? Candy replied, Daddy likes her too. At that, Willow's face completely darkened. She frowned. How do you know that? Candy stared straight ahead, her tone absolutely certain. Daddy always smiles at Aunt Alicia, but when he sees you, he looks worried. And when they act together, they even kiss. At this point, Candy started muttering again. Mom, do you think after Daddy marries Aunt Alicia, they'll give me a little brother or a little sister? I like little brothers more. Willow suddenly pulled the car over to the side of the road. She turned back, her face pale, brows tightly furrowed. What did you say? Candy blinked. Will Aunt Alicia have a baby brother or sister? Mom, didn't you say that kissing makes people pregnant, and if you get pregnant, you can have a little brother? Candy was secretly delighted, completely unaware of the hurt expression on Willow's face beside her. Chapter 8. On school days, Candy was never idle for a single moment. Every time she had a break and I picked up my phone, I would see long voice messages she had sent me. In her soft, childlike voice, she shared bits of her kindergarten life. Daddy, today we had shrimp noodles for breakfast at kindergarten. Candy didn't like it. The noodles Uncle David makes are much tastier. Tom brought me a strawberry cupcake his mom made today. It was for Candy. Tom also said next time he'll treat you too. Today it was the assistant sister who picked me up again. Everyone else's parents come to pick them up. Candy feels a little jealous. Daddy, it would be so nice if you could come pick me up from school too. Hearing this, a wave of bitterness rose in my chest. I replied to her messages one by one. Uncle David says he misses you. When you come next time, he'll make fried noodles for you. Haha. Thank Tom for me. When Daddy finishes filming this project, I'll go to Shanghai to pick you up from school. Don't be sad, Candy. Daddy really wants to pick you up too. Every time Candy came over, Willow personally handled the drop-offs and pickups. This went on for nearly half a month. And after dropping Candy off, she would often wander around the set with a gloomy expression, like a powder keg ready to explode at any moment. Candy secretly tugged at her and asked, Mom, are you going through menopause? Willow was momentarily speechless, unable to respond. But before she could say anything, Candy continued on her own. Mom, I think you really don't stand a chance anymore. If you're going through menopause, then you're old, lazy, and have a bad temper. You definitely can't compete with Aunt Alicia. Willow fell silent again, letting out an annoyed snort, but after thinking for a moment, she asked Candy, do you want Daddy and Mommy to be together? Candy was quiet for a while. She nodded, then shook her head. She said, Daddy isn't happy when he's with you, so maybe it's better not to. Willow asked, then do you want Alicia to be your new mom? Candy thought again, then crouched down gloomily and shook her head. Not really. Tom said if Daddy marries a new mom and they have a new baby, then Daddy won't like me as much anymore. I don't want Daddy to stop liking me. Filming for this drama wrapped up in late December. As soon as it ended, I went to Shanghai. As for Willow, she simply sent Candy straight to me. The moment she entered, Candy's eyes lit up. Daddy, is this our home? That night after her shower, Candy happily climbed onto the bed. Daddy, Candy feels so happy. I patted her head and smiled. Daddy feels happy too. Just as I finished speaking, the doorbell rang. I got up and checked the monitor, and saw Willow leaning against the doorway. After a brief pause, I went and opened the door. Chapter 9. The moment I opened the door, I saw her standing there with her head lowered, her eyes red. She said, George. Candy is missing. I was just about to say she wasn't, when her body suddenly went limp and she collapsed forward. I reacted quickly and caught her, pulling her into my arms. A faint smell of alcohol lingered at my nose. She had been drinking. I tried to steady her, but she clung tightly to me, refusing to let go. Hearing the commotion, Candy hurried out, her fluffy slippers pattering against the floor. With a helpless sigh, I carried Willow to the sofa. I'll go make your mom some hangover soup. Keep an eye on her. Candy nodded and sat obediently beside Willow. Looking at her sleeping like a log, she poked Willow's face in annoyance. Isn't this embarrassing? You're such a grown-up and still need someone to carry you. Willow couldn't help it. She squinted her eyes slightly at Candy, gritting her teeth in irritation. Candy's eyes lit up. She glanced back toward the kitchen, then leaned close to Willow's ear. In a whisper, she said, Mom, I know you're pretending to be drunk. Willow turned her head away, frowning, ignoring her. Candy climbed on top of her and turned her face back. If you buy me the newest Barbie doll, I won't tell Daddy. Willow turned her head away again and let out a faint from her throat. That whole night, Candy was unusually attentive. She fed Willow water, wiped her face, though when giving her water, she accidentally spilled it all over Willow's clothes. And while wiping her face, she accidentally bumped Willow's nose. Willow frowned and let out a muffled groan in pain. After Candy went to sleep, I looked at Willow lying on the sofa and shook my head helplessly. I tapped her arm with the back of my hand. That's enough. Stop pretending. She didn't move, determined to keep acting drunk until the end. I sat down beside her and said calmly, Willow, we're both in our 30s now. We're not in our 20s anymore. Let's not do this. So if you keep pretending, I'm throwing you out. Willow pressed her lips together, her voice tinged with sadness. Yeah, we can never go back. I leaned back against the sofa and rubbed my temples. Back then, you said you wanted to be chosen without hesitation. So at that time, I chose her, and believed she would choose me too, but I lost that bet. Her voice trembled. Yeah. I asked so much of you back then, but when it came to myself, all I did was run away. Even Makoto dared to defy his family, cancel the engagement, and run abroad. She continued. You once gave up everything for me, betting that I would choose you, but back then, I didn't dare to choose you. Thinking about it now, I really feel sorry for you. I smiled faintly. Yeah, you were pretty hypocritical back then, but I'm still grateful to you. Without you, I wouldn't have what I have today. It's just that, Willow, crashing into the same wall hurts. I don't have many strengths, but remembering pain is one of them. She lowered her head, her eyes turning slightly red. Chapter 10. Candy's parent-teacher meeting was held right before winter vacation. Rather than a typical meeting, it was more like a parent-child activity organized by the kindergarten. The night before, Candy was so excited that she couldn't fall asleep, wriggling around beside me non-stop. The smile on her little face never faded as she said, Daddy, when we go to kindergarten tomorrow, they'll definitely envy me. I raised an eyebrow. Envy you for what? She replied, because I have a super amazing dad. So in my daughter's eyes, I was amazing. Other than my fans, I hadn't received such sincere praise in a long time. Looking at her, I couldn't help but feel a bit greedy. If only Candy could stay by my side forever. Candy snuggled closer to me and softly called, Daddy, she said. I've seen you before at the kindergarten entrance. I opened my mouth in surprise. She continued, you were wearing a mask and a hat, but I still knew it was you, because you were always looking at Candy. Daddy, I didn't mistake you, right? I hugged her and said, Daddy was always there. In the earlier years, I rarely had the chance to see Candy. It was only later, when she followed Willow to Shanghai and started kindergarten, that I would occasionally, when I had no work, stand among the crowd of parents picking up their children and steal a distant glance at her. I had even bought this apartment in Shanghai because it was close to her kindergarten, but I never dared to let her know. Deep down, I was afraid that my daughter might also think I had abandoned her. And even more afraid that she might say the words, "You're not my dad." Fortunately, my child had been raised very, very well. Early in the morning, Candy got up and started getting ready. She stood in front of the mirror for a long time, admiring herself. I had no idea who she learned to be so vain from. When she noticed me laughing behind her, she blushed, a little embarrassed. "Daddy, can you put some white on me?" "Huh?" she explained. "Tom's mom is coming today too. I want to look pretty." Hearing that, I couldn't help but laugh. "You like Tom that much?" Candy nodded. "When the kids at kindergarten used to make fun of me, only Tom helped me. Tom is a hero. He always protects me at kindergarten. So I've decided, I'm going to marry him when I grow up." Grandma's TV dramas say this is called devoting yourself to someone. In the end, Candy looked at herself in the mirror, extremely satisfied. See, so fair and pretty. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I originally thought Willow wouldn't come today, but just as Candy and I finished getting ready and were about to head downstairs, we saw her standing at the door. Candy was overjoyed, holding my hand with one hand and Willow's with the other. At the kindergarten entrance, she held her head high. Every time she saw someone, she would say, "See, I have a dad." Willow felt a bit unbalanced seeing this. "Why don't you say you have a mom too?" Candy let go of her hand and said, "Daddy is a best actor. You're just an ordinary person. What's there to show off?" Willow was instantly irritated. In her entire life, no one had ever called her ordinary. She puffed her cheeks in anger and followed behind Candy and me. Candy introduced me to Tom and Tom's mother, but unexpectedly, Tom's mom turned out to be one of my fans. When she saw me, she was so excited she practically jumped. The parent-child class was the last session of the semester. Candy had a great time. After the holiday started, she stayed with me for a while. Before the new year, Willow took Candy back to Beijing. When it was time to leave, Candy was on the verge of tears, throwing a rare tantrum like an ordinary child. In the end, Willow had no choice but to carry her straight into the car. Chapter 11. In the car, after Candy finished crying, she started getting angry. "Mom, if you weren't so immature, Daddy could have spent the new year with us." Willow fell silent for a moment, then said, "Do you want Mommy and Daddy to live together?" Candy lowered her head and softly murmured an Then she sighed, as if something was troubling her. Willow patiently explained. "One reason Daddy and Mommy separated is what you said. Mommy used to be too immature and not brave enough. Another reason is that your grandpa and grandma don't like Daddy." Candy frowned. "How can grandpa and grandma start liking Daddy? Do you want to know? I'll tell you." So, on the very first night back in Beijing, Candy hugged her pillow and went into her grandparents' bedroom. She lay between them and kept scrolling through short videos of motorcycles. The two elders asked her why she liked those. Candy said with a dreamy look, "Grandpa, Grandma, when I grow up, I also want a boyfriend who can ride a cool motorcycle." The two of them were completely stunned, exchanging confused glances. Candy's eyes sparkled as she continued, "Mom went out riding with a motorcycle uncle. They even hugged. Mom also told me to call that handsome uncle with white hair Dad. Mom also said she wants to be with him forever and even get tattoos and a tongue piercing for him. That must be what love is." The moment she said that, the two elders were so shocked they couldn't sleep at all. They tossed and turned the entire night. The next day, with dark circles under their eyes, they sat in the living room, staring at Willow and asking, "What does that Uncle Candy mentioned mean?" Willow, with a shy expression, said, "Oh, him? He's my boyfriend. He said he'll come visit in a few days to pay his New Year respects." Willow's father was so furious his vision went black, and he collapsed on the spot. Looking at her fainted father, Willow sighed helplessly, "Dad, stop pretending. You're as healthy as an ox." Her father was so angry he kept shouting, "What a disaster! What a disaster!" Willow ignored him. Meanwhile, Willow's mother was full of regret, scolding her husband non-stop. "Back then, who told you to meddle so much? You looked down on this and that. Now look, our daughter is about to be taken away by some hooligan." Chapter 12. On New Year's Eve, I had just finished a call with my parents. Then Candy's video call came in. She happily showed me the dumplings she had made. Right after the call ended, the doorbell rang. I got up and checked through the peephole. I thought it would be David and Luis, but to my surprise, it was Willow. Confused, I opened the door, and she walked in without hesitation. I stood there for a moment, stunned. "Aren't you in Beijing?" She looked at me and smiled slightly. "I came to spend New Year with you." I didn't even have time to react. She placed the still warm dishes on the table, then casually went to the wine cabinet and opened a bottle of red wine. Seeing her act like the lady of the house, I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. "You're really not being polite at all." She snorted lightly and looked at me. "I already gave birth to your child. What's there to be polite about? Even if you don't care about old feelings, at least pity me for flying all the way from Beijing to spend New Year with you." I clicked my tongue. "How did I not realize before that you're this thick-skinned?" That night, we talked about many things from the past. As we drank, we gradually got a little drunk. A man and a woman, alone in a room, after drinking. Something was bound to happen. The next morning, when I woke up, I complained. "Seriously, at your age, you've even learned how to climb into someone's bed." Willow pulled the blanket around herself and sat up slowly, annoyed. "You were the one who kissed me first, and now you're blaming me." She snorted, getting dressed as she spoke. "Go take a shower. I need to change the bed sheets. You're such a grown man. How are you still this messy?" I let out an "oh." In the bathroom, I took a shower. Thinking back carefully, it did seem like I made the first move, but I didn't think much of it. People in their 30s have their needs. Besides, Willow had kept herself in great shape all these years. I didn't mind, but Willow did. Day after day, she kept making her presence known in front of me, even wearing all kinds of new outfits to tempt me. How could I possibly resist that? Before long, I even started drinking goji berry tea to keep up. Chapter 13. After that brief New Year, filming for a new project began again. The moment Candy came back, she declared she was cutting ties with Willow. The reason? Willow had secretly gone to spend New Year with me without bringing her along. She even swore she would never play with her again for the rest of her life. But when Willow brought out the latest Barbie doll as an apology, the little girl immediately bounced around her again, calling out, "Mommy is the best." Willow still wandered around the set from time to time. At the slightest movement, she would suddenly appear. Candy described this behavior as being love-brained. When Willow heard that, she was furious again. For some reason, having them around didn't feel so bad. So I chose to turn a blind eye, letting things be. I continued acting as usual. Nothing in my work changed. But one time, after getting drunk again, Willow cried and asked me for a proper status. I didn't give it to her. Instead, I said domineeringly, "Marriage will affect my career. I'm still young. If you want to stay, then stay. If not, go back. Don't keep hovering around me." She stood there, wronged and speechless. Chapter 14. Extra story. Willow. The first time I met George was at a gathering with my best friend. A few drunk guys kept pestering us, trying to drag us into having drinks with them. It was George who showed up and scolded them a few times. "Never had alcohol before. I'll drink a few with you." Only then did they back off. Afterward, my best friend told me that he seemed to be an actor. That was the first time I got to know George, and also the first time I started standing a celebrity. The second time I saw him was at the same place. He was being pointed at and scolded by a woman. She poured a glass of alcohol straight over his head and sneered, "Do you think I'm giving you face? You think you're worthy of rejecting me. Now you know the consequences. Too late. Just wait to get sued. George turned his head aside and said nothing, but our eyes met. Later, in the restroom, I saw him again. He was leaning over the sink, vomiting nonstop. So I stepped forward and interrupted what he was doing. I said, "George, I can help you." Then I added, "Be with me. At least I'm young and pretty. Being kept by me isn't a loss for you." Of course, George had no reason to refuse me. After all, my figure is seriously top tier. My best friend scolded me, saying that spending money on men would bring bad luck for a lifetime. I scoffed at that. Who doesn't know she didn't even take a single cent of bride price, yet turned around and bragged online about receiving $880,000 as bride price, hyping it up for other girls. At the beginning, George was still a bit unaccustomed, but as time went on and he gradually got used to it, I realized that he was really putting in a lot of effort. When he was in a good mood, he worked hard in a gentle way. When he was in a bad mood, he worked hard fiercely. So this is what it feels like to be a sugar mommy. It was my first time experiencing what it meant to be one, so that period felt incredibly fresh and exciting. I supported him enthusiastically and hyped him up with all my effort. I was both his career fan and his girlfriend fan. My best friend couldn't take it anymore and scolded me, saying I had a love brain. For some reason, I actually wanted to be a love brain. Before I knew it, I had fallen deeper and deeper. Later, this matter reached my mother's ears. She said angrily, "You're simply messing around. What status does he have? And what status do you have? He's just a nobody actor. How is he going to support you in the future?" But I had been spoiled since childhood, and I had developed a bit of a rebellious personality. I refused to accept that logic. I had my own company and my own career. Why should he be the one to support me? Besides, 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river, I was willing to believe in George. So the more they said things like that, the more determined I was to like him. But deep down, I also knew that perhaps we were destined to meet but not to be together. Whether it was my grandfather or my parents, none of them would ever agree to us being together. Until later, everything completely spiraled out of control. My mother went to see George behind my back and even locked me up, not allowing me to go out. Right after that, she arranged a marriage alliance for me, but I was pregnant. My first reaction was to tell George and run away with him, but my grandfather threatened me with his life, forcing me to get engaged to Makoto. I refused, and he was so angry that he was hospitalized. I was raised by my grandfather. I was afraid that if I angered him again, I might never see him again. In the end, I compromised and completely cut off contact with George. I once imagined that after telling Makoto, he might take the initiative to call off the engagement, but he replied indifferently, "Doesn't matter. It's meaningless," he said lazily. "No, miss. What are you thinking? A business marriage is about interest. Even if I call it off, the Ito family wouldn't agree. It would only cause a scandal. What good would that do for either family, or for you?" Then he laughed and said, "Didn't expect that I, Makoto, would one day have to take over someone else's mess." My heart turned to ashes, and I didn't want to deal with him anymore, until I received the news that Makoto had run away from the engagement and left the country in style. Before leaving, he said, "Willow, see that, learn from it." After that, I broke free from my family's control and gave birth to the child on my own. The young lady who had once been pampered like she was on cloud nine also went through a period of hardship. I had thought about going to find George, but I didn't know how to face him. Later, Candy grew older and older. She often asked me what her father was like. I never hid anything from her. I told her that the one on TV was her father. The little girl had quite a peculiar temperament. In the past couple of years, I had been busy, and she had been raised by the elders. People say that grandparents spoil their grandchildren, and it's true. So without realizing it, she developed a fearless personality, but I didn't expect her to be that bold. She actually dared to go find George all by herself. When she arrived at the filming location, she proudly told me, "Since you wouldn't take me to see Dad, I came myself." I was so angry at the time that I almost coughed up blood. I immediately sent people over to bring her back, but in the end, I softened and only had bodyguards watch over her, until she found George, and then George sent me a message. "I don't have many strengths as a person, but confidence is one of them. I've always believed that a broken mirror can be made whole again." The 20-year-old Willow might not have firmly chosen George, but the 30-year-old Willow would make George her only choice.